Welcome to episode 84 of OTD, your daily dose of soccer history by 17 Laws Guy. It's January 23, 1939. We are in Vienna, and the city is quiet in the way a city gets quiet when it doesn't want to know. Because of this morning, people start to worry that Matthias Sindelar hasn't shown up. Not late to training worry, not Mr. Tram worry, but the kind of worry you get when a man who always appears suddenly doesn't. A friend begins searching, first in Papierene, where Sindelar has been trying to build a quieter life, a cafe, a family neighborhood, a routine that feels almost like retirement. Nothing. And then the thread appears, a new woman, Camilla Castagnola, an intense, fast relationship, barely days old, and a phone call that pulled Sindelar away early on Sunday morning. So the search moves to the inner city, to Annagasse, to the flat above her small eatery. They knock. No answer. They knock again. Still nothing. And then they force the door. Inside, a bare room, a small table near the bed, a half-finished bottle of cognac, and an empty cigarette packet. And then the scene that turns the sports story into a national trauma. Matthias Sindelar is dead, on the floor. Castagnola is unconscious, alive, but never to return. The official conclusion will be simple. Carbon monoxide poisoning. But almost nothing else about this day will be simple. Because Sindelar isn't just a footballer. He is der Papierene, the paperman, a Viennese whirl of speed and grace, the face of Hugo Meisl's Wunderteam, and the closest Austria came to a footballing Mozart before the continent's politics turned the lights off. And 10 months earlier, he had performed the strangest act of football defiance Europe had yet staged. Austria versus Germany, 3 weeks after the Anschluss, a reunification match ordered to be harmless. And he scored. So today we do what we always do. We ask, how did we get here? To understand Sindelar, you start with a place, not a person. Vienna between the two world wars is not only an imperial capital learning how to live without an empire, it's a city of argument. A city where coffeehouses aren't just cafes, they're debating chambers with sugar, where writers and journalists argue politics, art, and football. And football in Vienna becomes something unusually intellectual for its time. Angles, combinations, movement, rhythm. The city even creates its own football contrast. On one side you have the tank, Rapid Vienna's Josef Uredil, a symbol of force, directness, and the working class punch. And on the other, the wafer, Sindelar, light and evasive, making defenders look like they're chasing a reflection. And in that environment the nicknames fit so perfectly, it becomes inevitable. Der Papierene, the paperman, not weak, not fragile, just ungraspable. As we explored in episode 13 about the first Mitropa Cup, Central Europe turns club football into an international laboratory in the late 1920s. Vienna, Prague, Budapest, trains, ties, and tactics. And as we explored in episode 52 about Hugo Meisl's debut in January 1912, this isn't accidental. Meisl is the architect, coach, organizer, diplomat, and football evangelist, building a system where Austria's style becomes a national identity. This is the world Sindelar grows into. Born in Moravia, raised in working-class Favoriten, he becomes New Vienna, ordinary in dialect, extraordinary on grass. And by the time he's fully formed, he doesn't play center forward like the era expects. He doesn't batter defenders. He evades them. He drops, he drifts, he turns the middle of the pitch into a chessboard. In modern language, he's a prototype, a forward who doesn't merely finish moves, but creates the geometry that makes finishing inevitable. At club level, Sindelar becomes the emblem of Austria Wien's great pre-war spell, cups, a league title, and Mitropa Cup nights that matter, because the Mitropa Cup is effectively the Champions League, before the Champions League existed. Austria Wien win it in 33 and again in 36, proves that Vienna's football isn't just stylish, it's elite. Now zoom out to the national team. Early 1930s. Austria become the Wunderteam. Unbeaten runs, bouts of major nations, and a passing game that makes opponents look like they are chasing shadows. They hammer Hungary 8-2. They go to England, Stamford Bridge, December 1932, and lose 4-3. But Austria's performance is so good that the match becomes a cultural event back home. Vienna gathers by radio, and afterward treats the loss like evidence of belonging at the top table. In 1931-32, Austria win what is essentially a pre-Euro, the Central European International Cup, a multi-year league format competition among the region's best. And in the middle of this all is Sindelar, the face of the team, the conductor inside Meisl's orchestra. But the 1930s aren't just football. They're a countdown. The politics harden. The continent tilts. Meisl dies in 1937. And then, March 1938, the Anschluss. Austria is annexed by Nazi Germany. And football becomes something it always becomes under authoritarianism, a stage. So now we arrive at one of the most mythologized matches in European football history, on April 3rd, 1938, at the Prater Stadium, Austria versus Germany. Built by Nazi sports authorities as a reunification match, 90 minutes designed to look like brotherhood. The story, told for decades, is that the match is meant to end as a harmless draw, that the Austrians spent the first half trying not to score, literally and almost comically. And then something snaps in Sindelar. He scores. Then Karl Sester scores, and Austria win 2-0. And the image that survives, part record, part legend, is the paperman celebrating in front of Nazi officials as if to say, you can annex the country, but you can't annex the soul. The match happened. Austria won 2-0. Sindelar scored. And the myth grew because the moment demanded a myth. Europe needed a story where beauty pushed back, even once. After the Anschluss, the Austrian national team is to be dissolved into a greater German side. Players are pressured to comply, but Sindelar refuses. He cites age and injury, and he never plays for the Nazi national team. Instead, he retreats. He becomes a cafe owner, a man trying to live a smaller life while the state watches who comes through the door. And if you remember episode 42 about Pepe Bican, you've already seen the Central European pattern. A genius footballer, trapped between regimes, offered a path to safety through compliance and choosing something harder. Now we return to this day, January 23rd, 1939. Vienna speculates immediately. Accident, suicide, murder, a leaky heater, a blocked flue, or something darker. An autopsy is performed on January 26th. The official finding, carbon monoxide poisoning, likely from a damaged outlet pipe and a blocked chimney flue. The cognac in the room is tested. No toxins are found. And yet the case doesn't end cleanly. The prosecutor keeps the file open for months, and it closes only later under pressure from the Nazi municipal apparatus. Even the paperwork becomes part of the story. Records missing, archives incomplete, and in that absence, rumor becomes a second cause of death. Because a death lands in a particular political moment. Sindelar isn't just famous, he is symbolically inconvenient, a national icon of pre-Anschluss Austria, a man who refused incorporation, a man around whom defiance narratives had already crystallized. So Vienna does what Vienna always does when politics and grief collide. It whispers, and those whispers never stop. Then comes the funeral. This is the point in the story where you feel how much football meant, and how much the regime wanted to control what it meant. By some accounts, 15,000 line the streets. It's a mass event. Extra trams are put on. An opera chorus sings. And the atmosphere is not only mourning, it is contest, because even the symbols are fought over. Austria Wien's violet identity, the club colors, is present. And yet there are also Nazi presence attempting to shape the optics, managed order, uniforms, co-option. And the most haunting image of all, the team of mourners in formation, and a gap where Sindelar should have been. Not just absence, a hole in a living system. This is not merely a farewell to a footballer, it's a farewell to a version of Vienna. A version where art and intellect and sport could share the same streets without fear. And to understand how deeply that loss is felt, you only need to see what the football world continued to do afterward. Keep speaking his name, keep retelling the Anschluss match, because Sindelar's story isn't only about how he played, it's about what he represented. A man light enough to escape defenders, trying to live under a state designed to trap everyone. So what was the world robbed of? A player who made centre-forward play look like ballet, a team that might have won a World Cup in a different decade, and a football culture that was as much cafe debate as it was stadium brawl, and a man whose last public act, real, mythologized the both, left Europe a perfect football image, the paperman scoring when he wasn't supposed to. So what should we take away from January 23, 1939? As always, 3 points. First, footballers don't exist outside history. Sindelar's career is inseparable from Vienna's interwar culture, and his death is inseparable from what the Anschluss did to the city's moral atmosphere. Second, the archives don't always close a case. When records are thin and politics are thick, memory fills the gaps, and that's why Sindelar's death never becomes just an accident in the public imagination. And third, greatness is not only trophies. Sindelar's most enduring title is influence, a prototype of modern attacking movement and the face of a team that helped football learn a new language. On this day in 1939, Matthias Sindelar was found dead in Vienna, the paperman, and the punchline is the cruelest kind. The man who made defenders look heavy was ultimately defeated by something you can't dribble, a silent gas, and a city that never stopped whispering. That's all for episode 84 of OTD, your daily dose of soccer history by 17 Lost Guy. I'm grateful for your ideas about events to talk about on this show, so if you have any, email me at otd@17lostguy.com. Tomorrow, in episode 85, January 24, 1976, Kettering Town, and the curious story of the first shirt sponsorships in the English Football League. See you then.